Jesus determines one's worth because Jesus has the worth of the law. Problem of the Pharisees was trying to obtain righteousness without God, obtain righteousness of the law without the help of God, which is what grace is. The same problem with the Pharisees, the problem with all outside of true followers of Christ. That's why didn't I just say Christians? Why did I say true followers of Christ? Because many Christians, you'll be surprised to find out, they do not believe in their own worth, even though they have faith in Jesus. You don't want to let that happen. You don't want to let trust issues come back. Trust issues is that bitterness and that unforgiveness, that disappointment in your heart, trying to find a way to speak against God after speaking against people. Because you have been bitter and unforgiving towards people, but you cannot judge the Most High before the day of judgment. You cannot judge the Most High before you see the goodness of the Most High. That's the definition of prejudice, to assume before you know, to make a judgment on something before you know. No matter what you tell these people, they have a hardened heart. That's why it says that you cannot tell people they're loved by God because they want a reason. You'll be surprised to find out many people cannot accept that God loves them. When I say loves them, I mean love them in the form they are in, no matter how dirty or messy. So when the truth of the scriptures is that God loves you, they'll think that why or how. Those are the responses, or really just unbelief. Unbelief is the common response. Just think about it. When a baby is born, the mother rejoices, as the scripture saith, because the man has come into the world. Likewise, I believe when the Lord forms and shapes in the womb, he rejoices. I feel as we, I feel as because we are born and raised in this world, that we do not see the heavenlies, but we see this world. And we see this world's value system. We see what this world cherishes and what this world doesn't cherish. So we don't adopt the value that the Most High God bestows on all his children. We begin to try to find reasons for everything. Reasons for why God loves us. Reasons for why we need to always justify something rather than allow things to be as they are. When a mother and a father has a kid, you don't ask the parents, why do you love this kid? That is a bad question to ask. They'll say, I love you because this is my son. This is my son in whom I am well pleased. The Lord loves his children. But what the devil wants to do, he wants to say that you are not worthy. The law is actually worthy. So the only way you can be worthy is if you apply the law unto yourself. And he tells different versions of this same lie to majority of people on this planet. That, for instance, to many girls, the devil's lie is that you are not beautiful, you are not desirable. But if you add this makeup, if you add whatever the case may be, this jewelry, this garment, add it to your appearance, and then you will be beautiful. So then the question to be asked is, are you therefore really beautiful if you're not without that thing? Are you really the beautiful one, or is the accessory added the actual beauty. That's all the devil is. Creates need where there is already fulfillment. Beauty is a thing you are born with. Beauty is not something that is added. I say again, beauty is a thing you are born with. It's a thing you already have. It's not something that is added. Because people do not accept themselves the way they are. They think they are incomplete, insignificant. They think they lack without something. And the world exists to cause that very problem. Almost everything exists to make you feel insignificant. Racism exists to make certain people feel like they somehow matter less or less than, or are even just bad. Sexism exists to make usually women feel like they are less than or bad. Just whatever state God makes someone, the devil creates something to almost incriminate, to almost make undesirable that thing, to make that thing somehow wrong. Oh, you're wrong because you're this, or you're wrong because you're a woman. Like things that God has established. That's why people become twisted. Twisted means to corrupt something from the original form. That's why people develop many of these, for instance, these mental health issues because they're not happy in their own skin. Let me just put it like that. They're not happy in their own vessel. They're not happy in the form God has made them. So they covet another form. Remember these films where usually this old woman, this witch, or whatever the case she may be, but she usually envies a younger girl who is more desirable. That means that's a lack of self-love. Aging is just a part of life. Love you for who and what you are. But many women, you'll be surprised, majority of them don't even put love in themselves. They put love in how they look. And because they put love in how they look, people often mistake that and confuse that with love for themselves. They don't love themselves, they love their form. That's it. So when they lose that form, they become angry. Self love has no room for anger. I say self love has no room for anger. Self love even has no room for unforgiveness, too. If you do not love yourself, brothers and sisters, it is impossible for you to forgive someone else. You cannot hate the next man and claim you fully love yourself. But if you don't love yourself already, then why would you show love to the other person? This is why it's almost hard to love when you don't love yourself because you feel as if you are insignificant. So when you give love to something else, it's as if you're admitting this thing is better than me. And that can even inadvertently further the feelings of insignificance. That's the main problem with the Pharisees. They felt insignificant. They put their value not in Jesus. They put their value in the same law that makes them feel guilty, that makes them feel bad. So it's no surprise in the New Testament the type of man the law creates. And many of you feel the same way, not because of the law, but you go through a different law system. You're judging yourself by a different standard. But nevertheless, you fall short of that standard as much as the Pharisees fell short of the law of Moses. I don't know what you're judging yourself by, but you need to know it's a lie. You are loved by God, but you need to love yourself. You need to love yourself is to experience the truth of what God feels. But because you don't feel what God feels, God loves you, but you don't love yourself, It's hard when you hear that fact. It doesn't feel. It's hard to relate to it. It's hard to relate to it because you do not, you never experience those emotions. So the less you love, the less it harder it is to become God. So it's no surprise when they looked at God as the way they were. The Pharisees were the way the Pharisees were like their God. Their God was the law. They were bitter and unforgiving. The law doesn't forgive. The law has certain people to be put to death. So until you master the love of yourself and stop lying, stop trying to deceive yourself, until you truly master the love of yourself and truly wake up and stop comparing yourself. That's a seed of hate. Stop envying. Stop feeling you lack, or stop viewing yourself as ugly in your own eyes, or less than, or just bad. You will do far much better. But can many people? That's the hard part. It's not just knowing this truth. The hard part is truly reprogramming your mind to believe these things that you haven't believed in a long time or never have believed. It's trying to recover from the indoctrination. That's the true difficulty in this. Because I can say this, but because that truth, that lie is so ingrained in your mind that you reject it out of a heart because you're not used to it. You don't want to believe it. You don't want to believe. You don't believe it's true because it's so contrary to what you've heard for so long. So don't care if they're loved. They don't feel love. The problem is the lack of self love, focusing so much on other people, but don't they forget themselves. Oh, I want that. I wish I had that. Always the constantly I wish rather than the I am. They put their value in certain standard. Situational self love. That's not self love. When things get messy and ugly, when you lose your beauty, for example, will you still love yourself? God's trying to humiliate you, remove you of many things to really show you, do you really love yourself? You think you love yourself, you just love your looks. You thought you love yourself, you just loved your skill. But for to remove all of that from you, can you still love yourself? How deep will your love run? Is it possible to know God if you don't know love? And part of the first thing of knowing God is knowing love. That's how the vengeful and bitter and unforgiving Saul of Tarsus became Paul. What did he learn? He learned what love is. To learn love is feeling love, not to know love. God is love. If people felt love, these religions, almost none of them would not exist. I'm not going to give them by names because every religion essentially puts your value on your your works, your value in your worth by that standard. But if you reveal there's no standard, the standard is already fulfilled in Jesus, and it's about maintaining that worth, not receiving that worth. Then you start to realize that since you're already seen that you're already loved by God, since you already attained the achievement, the religion would not exist. But too many people profit off the lie that God's love is situational and especially conditional. They they profit off of that lie. And because it's human nature to feel inadequate at times, that same mindset that Adam and Eve had after they sinned, the fig leaves, the fig leaves is the works of the law, or just any work in general, to feel like it can stand, but without it, they can't stand. You need to have self-love. Pride is not self-love. It's the false image of self-love. Pride is compensation for not having self-love. So we know that self-hatred was the sin of the Pharisees. That's why no matter what happened, they were always angry with Jesus because they were angry with themselves. So they project their anger onto him. It's all just projection. Anyone who has issue with themselves will always have issue with people. Unless those people are regurgitating the opinions they feel about themselves. That being said, thank you all for watching. See you on the next video. Goodbye and peace, and may the Lord bless you.